All right, fellow babies, welcome back to the Pachter Factor. Hope you're watching on SIFTD.net, paying so that Shane can afford to put his unborn children through college. And if you're not, if you're watching on YouTube, appreciate it. We understand that you either choose not to pay or can't afford it. That's cool. But at least give us likes and shares so we can get the word out so more people will watch. We can generate a little more revenue for SIFTD because I would love to see Shane make it. This week, our first question comes from Twitter, from @FiddlesTixit, or Fiddlesticksit, probably Fiddlesticksit, sorry, Fiddlesticks, that makes sense. Despite botching the initial hardware announcement, that's a kind statement, the Xbox One was strong out of the gate but has faded since. What has been Microsoft's biggest mistake with Xbox One since its launch? Actually, the biggest mistake was the launch. I think that my good friend, and I really do mean I love the guy, he's a great guy, Don Madrick, made a strategic error. I think that Microsoft introduced Kinect with the Xbox One. With the Xbox 360. They sold 15 million or so standalone Kinect units. They came up with a whole games division for Kinect games, and we were doing Dance Central, and they were trying to sell you game after game, and other than Dance Central and perhaps Kinect Sports, it was just worthless. I mean, you just didn't need it. And the whole voice command thing, it didn't really work. I mean, other than Xbox One on, Xbox One pause, who used it? And so it just ended up being a paperweight. And the way they launched the Xbox One with Kinect, so that you had to pay an extra $100, I think was a huge mistake. So $499 was too much. The console should have launched at $399. You had a ton of people who didn't really want Kinect. You had a ton of Xbox owners who regretted buying Kinect and then felt resentful that they were being forced to buy it with the Xbox One. So digital rights management missteps aside, which Microsoft quickly corrected at announcement time, I think requiring Kinect was just a horrible mistake. Now they recovered from that, a year later. So literally, in the spring of 14, they said, oops, never mind, we're unbundling it. And I think you can still buy an Xbox One with Kinect. I just don't know anybody who has. I got a Xbox One S and I got a Kinect adapter, which I have no intention of adapting Kinect and running it. No, I haven't used it since I got my Xbox. So no, it doesn't really mean anything to me. I don't care. Like, I literally can turn on my Xbox and press the Xbox, button on my new Bluetooth Xbox white controller, and it comes on. I mean, I don't need it. So I don't actually think that was a very smart move. I think that put them in a hole. I think the next big mistake they made was they allowed their deals with Activision to lapse. And, you had, not exclusives, but you had Call of Duty launching a month early for all DLC on the Xbox, and that flipped to launching a month early on the PS4. And never underestimate the power of the Call of Duty brand. According to Activision, there are 35 million monthly active players. So that's a market of 35 million people who are going to make a console purchase decision, and getting DLC a month early swayed a lot of them, tens of millions of them. That's a problem. I think Microsoft regrets that. I think you saw Destiny presented when it was announced for a September 2014 launch. I believe that was in February or March or something. It came out like it was a PlayStation exclusive. You've had Grand Theft Auto, for next-gen consoles, announced at Sony's June 2014 press event, E3 press event, and I was sitting in the audience asking people around, is this thing a PS4 exclusive? So those are the missteps that Microsoft made. And the guy who runs Xbox, Phil Spencer, super smart, super capable. I love the guy. I think he is being forced to make difficult decisions that are financially based. And I frankly believe Activision, which is super smart and very savvy about extracting every penny of profit they can from any source, played Microsoft off against Sony. I think Sony lamented the fact that Microsoft kicked their butts with these Destiny and Call of Duty exclusives, and Sony paid up. And I think Microsoft said, we're not going to pay that much. It's not worth it. I think in retrospect, they made a mistake, and it was. Okay, our next question this week from the SIFTD site from Rocky Fella. With all the open betas going on recently, do they and free demos really increase sales at all? Or are they just there to get player feedback and test out servers? Yeah, that's a great question. I don't know the answer. I'll do the best I can with it. I think that getting player feedback absolutely is essential. I'm not sure testing out servers matters. You can test servers with 500 people in a beta. I mean, it's, I guess, load balancing, but that's kind of an art form that is well understood, how to balance servers. You've got years of experience managing millions of peak concurrent users playing games like Call of Duty, so there's no way that they really need to test that out. They know how to do that in World of Warcraft. I mean, people know how to manage that. Player feedback, how many players need to play to get really meaningful feedback? 20,000? Sure. But an open beta that might have 1 million players or 2 million players, that is not why they do it. They do it really to get the word out about the game. And it can go both ways. If the game sucks and you have an open beta, people aren't going to buy it. I would say, although its beta was only about a week, that was probably one of the problems for Battleborn. I think Battleborn came out, people played the beta, and they said, this isn't that good. I think that Battleborn and Overwatch were very similar kind of game constructs. The people I know who tried both betas essentially concluded Overwatch just crapped all over Battleborn, and it made an easy decision. So I don't remember if Overwatch had an open beta. I think they had a closed beta for quite a while, but there were a lot of people in it. It was like an invitation only, but you could request an invitation, as I recall. But there were, I'm sure, 50,000 people at least, and maybe a couple 100,000. And I talked to a ton of people who were in both betas, and they were just like, I don't care about the Battleborn characters. I don't remember what they do. Playing Overwatch, I'm into each character class. It's really cool. So, again, obviously, it's not fair to compare, a first effort game like that, from Gearbox to anything made by Blizzard, because the Blizzard guys have just been doing this stuff forever, and their character development's amazing. But, I think the beta can hurt you if you're Battleborn. I think it can help you if you're Overwatch. Bottom line is, it's a risky proposition, but if the game's good, you're going to guarantee a lot of people. I think Destiny is probably a good example of a game that I think the beta helped them with fans, and for some really odd reason, the gaming press hated the game. So the game got a 75 Metacritic score, which is on the low end of acceptable, and yet the game has totally resonated with fans. So there's something in there that the reviewers didn't see, and I would say it's really progression in the game, because I think the beta probably went to like level 10 or something. It certainly didn't go very high, and there were lots of group activities, taking on a big boss and defeating a big boss, that really happened at level 15, 20, 25 that you couldn't play if you were reviewing the game. So I think these really big game propositions, they really have to win the audience over a level at a time, and I think the beta really helps. But the answer is, I actually think open betas are just a very inexpensive way to promote a product and to market the product, and I think that they work if the game's good, and they hurt if the game isn't so good. Okay, we have a question from the SIFTD site from Dan Dave Taylor. I hope it's Dan and Dave. After lots of rumors and speculation, Sony announced the Crash Bandicoot trilogy remastered for PS4. Do you think Activision would be open to an IP acquisition, or are deals like this too lucrative for the minimal work involved on Activision's part? Activision bought Sierra, sort of. Activision and Vivendi Universal Games merged. And Vivendi was the bigger owner, so they owned roughly 60% of Activision. But Activision was running the games division. And when that ran, Activision's first official act was to kind of shut down anything Sierra ever did. So all the Sierra stuff kind of got shit-canned or shut down. And I think that had they had the opportunity to sell Crash Bandicoot then, they probably would have. I think that, this is more of a Sony nostalgia move, although, frankly, I think these games will be cool. I mean, I think they'll be fun to play. Activision probably is spending nothing, $5 million bucks max, to remaster all this stuff. They'll probably get $25 million or $50 million in revenue from it. And they probably, the answer is, would they be open to an IP acquisition? Sure. Who's going to buy it? Sony? I mean, Sony doesn't need to because it's probably not coming out on Xbox One. So, Sony can keep milking all the old titles they want. If Activision's getting paid, they'll take the money. If somebody wants to pay for it, Activision will do the math and say, gosh, we can make $50 million bucks every 5 years on remastered things, or you can buy this for $100 million bucks. I don't think anybody's paying, $100 million bucks for Crash Bandicoot. I think what would be interesting is if somebody would go in and offer $100 million bucks for all the Sierra Games portfolio. There's a lot of old stuff in there, and I'm sure a lot of it would be fun, to see remastered. But who is that party? Who's going to be making games based on old IP? I don't see it. I think if anybody could make great games on old IP, it would be Activision. And I think that's kind of like the Tony Hawk refresh, which didn't work, but that was old IP that they were trying to bring back. The Guitar Hero refresh, old IP, try to bring it back. So, no, I don't think Activision will actively shop this stuff. I don't see a meaningful bid coming from anybody other than a console maker. Perhaps Microsoft or Sony will want to shore up their first-party stuff. And frankly, Sony's probably the best positioned to buy stuff that thrived on PS2 so they can bring back the nostalgia factor on PS4. But likely what you'll end up with is a lot of $10 kind of, indie-type download games based on old IP. I mean, frankly, I think we would buy Tony Hawk 1 for a $10 download, and 2 and 3. Those would be fun, and we play them, and even if they don't look that great, they're nostalgic. Activision would make, a couple $million bucks on each one, and they cost nothing. So I don't think they need to sell it. I don't think they will sell it. I don't think anybody's going to make an offer. Okay, so our next question on SIFTD comes from the champ. Persona 5 comes out 5 months later in the US than Japan. You can already watch most of the game being played on YouTube, which may keep some in other territories from buying it. Do you think games getting released in different regions on different dates hurts sales? All right, I'm going to answer the question in 2 parts. The first part is, you can sum up all of my knowledge about JRPGs on the back of a postage stamp if you write in big letters. So I know nothing about this shit. I don't play them. I don't like them. I don't get them. They are whatever they are. I understand there's a huge fan base. So I'm not dissing you guys. It's like romance novels. I don't read them. They sell tens of millions of copies. So just not my thing. I'm not saying JRPG is as lame as romance novels. I'm just saying I don't understand who buys that stuff. Frankly, I don't understand who buys who buys Britney Spears songs or music. So whatever. It is what and I actually don't get like a lot of music artists. In any case, so take anything I say with a grain of salt. But to answer your question, I think getting released in different regions on different dates in general probably doesn't hurt sales at all. In particular with JRPGs, maybe. And again, I started with I know nothing about them. I'm not really sure what the point of a JRPG is. I assume it's like any RPG, but it's like you're going to get to the end. The only reason that different dates would make any difference at all is if there's some killer ending that nobody knows about and you start finding out. But the truth is, with any game, if it takes you more than about 2 or 3 days to finish the game, the word's going to be out on the internet anyway. Endings can be spoiled. I don't think it really matters. I think that the markets in these different places are independent markets. You're not going to fly to Japan and buy the game and then fly home. Theoretically, maybe you can get the Japanese language disc day one, but you're talking about September launch to February launch. I don't think it makes much difference at all. The market in the West for JRPGs is not that great. We're talking about a couple million units. So I don't think you're talking about a massive hit because they delayed it. And the truth is the game's developed in Japanese, and there's a lot of stuff that they have to convert, to make sure that the language translates properly. Gosh, I forgot the name of that game. Remember, give me all your base, or all your base belong to us.
All your base are belong to us.
Yeah, all your base are belong to us. That was the old 1980s translation. It gets to be hard. It is hard to translate things to where they make sense when you go from Japanese to any other language. And so I think that the developers who are quite professional want to get this right, want to make sure the experience is just as good in English or French or German as it is in Japanese. So, I think that it is what it is. I mean, they could probably hold up the Japanese launch and launch it all at the same time. The point with JRPGs is that they're going to sell in Japan and sell extremely well. And I would say that probably the sales internationally of a JRPG are about equal to the sales in Japan. So, they're not as interested in driving international sales as they are in getting it out in Japan and doing well in the home market. And so that's the reason for the delay. Games like Call of Duty, Grand Theft Auto launch globally on the same day because the teams are planning for a global launch, and they know damn well they're going to sell more units in international markets than they do in domestic markets. I mean, they have to have it in French and German and Spanish and whatever other language in addition to English. The Japanese tend to be, focused on their market, their primary market first, and because the language difference is so great, it just takes a lot of upfront planning, and I think they don't do that for the RPGs. I think that they plan the games to, a game like The Last Guardian would launch in all regions at once, but it's less dialogue, less, choice, and more taking you through the story and visually stunning, so you can do that. I think with JRPGs, there's just a lot more talking and making choice, and it's hard to translate. So, no, I don't think it really hurts sales, but yes, I think if anybody had their choice and could plan perfectly, they would have a global launch on the same day of any game, including JRPGs, including Persona 5. With that, fellow babies, we appreciate your joining us on Pachter Factor on SIFTD.net. We appreciate anybody who has made the wise decision to subscribe to SIFTD.net for only $50 a year. We hope that Shane has enough money to provide you with a lot more original content, and I hope that the SIFTD.net service is of value. If you can't afford it, we understand it. You're watching on YouTube a week late. We have to delay it a week because the SIFTD members have to have a reason to be members. If you're watching on YouTube, you could do us a big favor and give us a like and a share. We'd love to have Pachter Factor exposed to some of your friends. That drives higher viewership, enables Shane to produce more content in addition to Pachter Factor, which makes your SIFTD.net subscription even more valuable. So appreciate the likes and the shares if you're willing to do that. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next week.